It started with a sentence that didn't ask permission to exist. Step back. The vehicle's being towed. 3 seconds in, and I already knew this wasn't going to be one of those calm, boring interactions you forget by dinner. No hello, no explanation, no eye contact, just a tow truck idling behind my car like it had been invited before I ever showed up. I remember thinking, wow, we're already here, aren't we? You know what I mean? Like the ending had been written before the conversation even started. I turned my head just enough to see the metal arm lowered, not touching yet, but close enough to feel final. I took half a step toward the curb on instinct, then stopped myself because something about the speed of it all felt wrong, rushed, like I was supposed to disappear from the equation entirely. I said officer once. Nothing. Said it again, still calm, still polite. Can we slow down for a second? He didn't look at me. Officer Crow, white uniform, squared stance, one hand resting on his belt, the other casually pointing toward the tow operator like he was ordering lunch instead of moving my car. He said he'd already checked, said the sign said no parking, said we weren't debating it, told me to step back again. And that's the thing. People don't always understand. It's not the words themselves. It's how fast they're delivered, how little space there is for you to exist between them. I looked at the sign, then at my windshield. And there it was, the placard bent slightly at the corner from being slid in and out too many times. I reached for it without thinking, then stopped myself halfway because I'd learned a long time ago that sudden movements turn into stories that don't end well. I'm not arguing, I said. I'm just asking you to verify something before you move it. That's when he finally turned his head, not fully, just enough to acknowledge I was a person taking up air. My guy, he said, and you could hear the edge already forming step away from the car. I didn't move. I nodded instead, slow, deliberate, like I was letting him finish a sentence he hadn't really spoken yet. I told him the vehicle was authorized, that it was assigned, and he exhaled through his nose like I'd just inconvenienced his afternoon. He stepped closer. Not aggressive, not dramatic, just close enough for me to notice the scuffs on his boots, the little details that tell you this isn't his first time standing this way. I didn't ask for an explanation, he said. I told you to step away. Behind us, the tow truck revved slightly, then settled back into idle, and the operator kept his hands off the controls, which I noticed without looking directly at him. What's your name, I asked? Then immediately felt that internal alarm because I knew how that sounded. His jaw tightened. You don't get to ask questions right now, he said. So I looked down at the pavement, then back up and told him I needed him to check the plate before towing it. That's when his posture changed, not bigger, just closer, and he said I was interfering with a lawful tow, that if I didn't move right now I was going to have a problem. Across the street, a woman slowed down. Someone lifted a phone but didn't raise it yet. The city kept doing what cities do. Cars passing, footsteps echoing a siren somewhere far enough away to mean nothing. I told him I wasn't interfering, I was informing him. He told me I didn't get to inform him of anything, that this wasn't my decision. I glanced past him toward the tow operator, who avoided eye contact, shifted his weight, then froze again. I said the car couldn't be towed, and that's when the officer raised his voice just enough to carry just enough to make it official. Sir, you are refusing to comply. Step away from the vehicle. Now. I stayed where I was, hands loose at my sides, visible, relaxed. I told him I was standing next to my assigned vehicle and asking him to confirm the registration. He shook his head and said he didn't take instructions from civilians. That's not an instruction, I said, and there was a beat there longer than I expected. It's a request. He leaned in, slightly lowered his voice, told me the only mistake here was thinking I could tell him how to do his job. So I took a breath, let it out slow, and asked him to call a supervisor. His expression tightened like I'd crossed some invisible line. He told me I didn't get to escalate this, said I was already on thin ice, then turned away and keyed his radio, telling dispatch to start tow authorization, describing me as a civilian refusing to comply. I didn't interrupt, didn't correct him, just listened, because sometimes the best thing you can do is let the record speak for itself. The tow operator cleared his throat. The officer didn't look at him, just told him to do his job to hook it. For the record, I said evenly, I'm advising you not to proceed. For the record, he shot back, you're about to be detained. His hand drifted closer to his cuffs, a small practice movement that carried a lot of weight. I told him the vehicle was registered to the federal government. He smirked and said, sure, it was, then told the operator again to hook it. And here's where the moment changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The operator didn't move. The pause wasn't announced. It showed up as stillness, hands off the controls, one boot angled outward, weight shifted and held there. You want me to do it now? The operator asked carefully. Hook it, the officer said again, sharper this time. The operator nodded too quickly, reached for the lever, then hesitated, fingers hovering before settling back at his side. I stayed where I was and asked one more time for them to confirm the plate through the system. The officer snapped that he didn't take instructions from me. That's not an instruction, I said. It's a request to verify. He laughed short and dry, said, everyone says that. I angled my body slightly so he could see my face more clearly, not closer, not farther, and asked again for a supervisor. He repeated that I didn't get to escalate this slower now, like repetition would make it true, then keyed his radio again, asking dispatch about supervisor availability and calling it a possible obstruction. I kept my hands visible. The tow operator looked between us, then stepped back from the controls entirely. For the record, I said, I'm requesting verification of the plate before removal. The officer glanced toward the rear of the car, not at the plate itself, just past it, then said, I didn't have a permit displayed. I told him the vehicle didn't require one. He laughed again, but it didn't sound the same this time. I reached toward my jacket, slowly